talked about the individual user, and I'll just start here briefly and just say that all the different capabilities you have in OnePlan are off to the side here in the left-hand navigation that you might want to look at, and we'll go through those as we go through the demonstration. But for example, Daniel Williams here, if he comes here as an individual user, he may have insights that you've set up to let him see what requires his attention on things that are overdue or out of compliance or needs approval and those types of things, and have that come right to him. Recent conversations on the things that he's involved in, the plans, the resources, the tasks that he's involved in, what might be coming up due soon, and then access to the specific things that he's involved in. So he doesn't have to go through an entire large portfolio of projects to get to the things that matter to him. To be able to get to those things, create items in here, whether or not he has to log an issue or a risk or a new idea or create a new project, or even get to a specific area of a plan, like the work plan or the resource plan or the financial plan, etc. All can be done right from this user's homepage, which is very cool. Projects typically start as somebody's idea or somebody's request. And we didn't talk about that too specifically other than in the overview piece. But for example, an idea place is a portal in OnePlan where anybody in the organization can come and log an idea, and the people who are responsible for approvals on those things now have a place to vet all those things. We don't have some segmented set of emails or spreadsheets or all kinds of things that we have to coalesce around, right? The idea here is that we come through and we can actually create new ideas, and by looking at one that's been created, you can set up a form of the data elements that you'd like to capture, like how you categorize this request, right? And the metadata around that, the business case narrative that you may want to put in there in rich text, the ability to have maybe financial and budget and benefits estimates, and maybe a prioritization scheme that calculates a prioritization score for common valuation of those types of things, and maybe association with other things like strategic plans or other plans that it might be dependent on as we go through that. The key there is that as we go through this process, we can typically, in typical organizations, come up with many more ideas or requests than we could possibly fulfill it, right? And we go through an approval process, and at some point, we may come in here and say, let's reorganize this. And reorganize would allow us to take this idea or request and promote it into a project, taking with it all the data that we captured with it without having to recreate or transcribe that type of information. So the key here is that you may have voting for more crowdsourcing, you may have a prioritization mechanism, you may have some vetting, and the key here is that you can then make better informed decisions on what you should be promoting into your projects and initiatives. So for example, if I wanted to leverage Sophia here in the area of ideas or requests, I could ask it a question like, based on priority, votes, and ROI, what 3 projects should we approve first and why? And let's see what Sophia may come up with for us. So it will assess, or she will assess, all the different aspects that we've already input into these ideas and requests. And basically it's saying the first 3 projects that we should do are the website redesign. It's high priority, it's got a good number of votes, and it's been given the green light, and it's got some immediacy, etc. So it's giving me the rationale for why we should actually do these things, and it's basically giving me 3 projects or 3 requests that we should promote into projects. Once again, we put our own slant on those things, but help us in our analysis of those types. Let's just say we go through that process and we're come to a portfolio of initiatives that we want to work on. So I'm going to go to the My Portfolio area within OnePlan, right? And we can structure this any way that you want. We have some templates for some common ways people do that. But we use what's called a plan type and a plan type hierarchy. In this case, I've got a plan type hierarchy where I have 1 or more portfolios. Here I've got 8 portfolios. And then within those, we've got programs. And then within the programs, there's projects and epics, which actually have denotes really a waterfall project versus a more agile project. And we've even broken the epic down 1 more layer further down to feature level if we want to do things like program increment planning and things like that. But the idea here is you can structure this in this plan type hierarchy any way that you see fit. Now, if I expand one of these portfolios and the programs within it, you'll notice there's a bunch of projects and epics within that program. And I'll call your attention to the icons to the left-hand side here. And this is where we get into this adaptive multiple set of connected tools, right? For example, I've got a bunch of plans that are connected to Microsoft Teams for content and collaboration. But for example, this one here is actually connected to Teams for content and collaboration, but it's also connected directly to Azure DevOps for details on its backlog and or its schedule, right? This one particular is connected to Microsoft Project for the web, and this one's connected to Microsoft Project Professional. This one's connected to Monday.com. This one's connected to Smartsheet. So the key there is that you have the flexibility to have a holistic portfolio, but have the detailed plans coming from and completely integrated, seamlessly integrated with those other popular tool sets and bringing those into your common portfolio. Now, yes, we can look at views like this that are more KPI oriented. We might have views in here that might allow us to do some things with trending. So we snapshot data such that you can look at trending and how things are trending over time. So if I look at this same portfolio of information and look at the trends, I can look at how we're doing on the state of the project and the status trend, and how we're doing on budget and active issues, et cetera, and keep an eye on that, whether we're trending well or trending badly in those regards. We could also, come in here and just strip out that primary plan type hierarchy and look at what we call a summary view in this particular case, but it's a flat view of all the projects and epics that are in here, right? When we look at that. And what this gives us the opportunity is to look at this and summarize it, group it, filter it by something other than that primary hierarchy. So for example, I could come in here and say, let me look at this by business unit. And now I can take a look here, and if I want to understand what's going on in our transformation program, I can see the projects that are doing on the transformation program. It looks like we're doing well. Everything looks green in transformation. I can see the summarizations of dollars and budgets and those types of things. And we can filter by those same parameters if you want to isolate that data rather than group it. If we have different categorization or metadata we do around the project by category. Now I can look at this by, here's the compliance projects that we're working on and how we're doing on those. If I want to look at ownership a little bit and I want to see, who the manager is and the project manager on these, and I can look at, a specific set of projects by Bertram that he's working on and how Bertram's projects are doing, as well as maybe isolate this stuff by things like executive sponsor. Once again, we brought this together regardless of what execution tools are being used, right? And bringing them into one common hub so we can do this dynamic type of analysis. We also have board views. So for example, if I go into the boards and look at this particular case, this one I've got the columns are by the state of the project, proposed, active, closed, or on hold. There's no swim lanes on this, but I can also see that market research, I've got the high level data that we chose to show on the card, but at any given point in time, I can go look at or drill into the details around that card and look at why market research might be red. So for example, as I look at the details on the pop out on the quick edit here, and I look at the status, I can see it's because the schedule's off track. It looks like we're doing okay on resource utilization and on financials and on issues. It's really the schedule is what makes us off track is because we're behind. So once again, we can look at this in a variety of different ways. So for example, if I come in here and look at this board by, let's just say by goals and by program, we could actually interject swim lanes on top of those columns. In this particular case, I can see the grow the business. I've got a yellow one here on the app project, or I got to run the business, user interface enhancements, et cetera. And these are agile development, asset replacement, and other different programs that we have that we're aligning those things by. Okay, so we can flexibly change our boards and have a variety of different board views that we want. We also have the roadmaps, and those roadmaps give us the ability to look at a more roadmap type of view. In this case, I've got the swim lanes by the business unit and how those are doing. And once again, from any of these views, since they're live data, I can come in here and actually look at why this is yellow and basically bring up the details around that at any given point in time while I'm looking at this graphical view, as opposed to some folks are still dealing with static roadmaps that aren't dynamically tied to the real data. In the list views, we can have a lot of different perspectives on this, right? So for example, if I went from this portfolio summary view and I went to go into say well, I'll just stay here, and we could have a prioritization view or other things that we were working on. I could come in here and ask Sophia in this question. I might say to her, which project, based on the data that it sees here, needs the most corrective action and why? And basically take a look at that and see what she comes up with as a response for us. Once again, this is real-time information, leveraging what it knows in general from its language model, what it knows from what we've trained it on this discipline. And it says that social media strategy is its choice because, one, it's off track, and it's off track in a number of different dimensions. It's off schedule, and its budget against the benefit excessive costs and reduced benefit, which is generally not a good indicator. So once again, it's giving me not only its choice, but it's giving me the rationale around that as we go through. So just a couple of examples there. Now, if I drill into a specific project, there's all kinds of different dimensions in here. For example, you can structure, and we have templates for this to get you started. But the idea here is the details page would give you the ability to identify phase or gates or stages for your projects, the metadata that you want to capture around those projects so we can categorize in those views and reports, etc. The business case data that may have come over from the initial request or idea in the first place, so we have a record of that. The prioritization values that drove the prioritization score that's here. We even have the associations that might be associated, have this with the strategic elements like the key results or applications it's associated with, or products or value streams that it might be associated with, as well as current data on things like where we're at in schedule, the financials, the project effort, project health, project status. And once again, it's comprehensive on all these different dimensions in one place. The work plan here, in this particular case, it came from OnePlan itself. It was built right in OnePlan. This one is not connected to any additional tool set right here on this particular backlog or on the schedule work type. As you can notice here, we have different work types. The schedules for more waterfall planning, the backlogs for more agile planning. You can even log things like risks, issues, changes, and maybe key decisions that are made along the way. And you can even add your own work types in here, like things like lessons learned or assumptions and that type of thing that people often put in these types of things. But the idea is you have a choice to connect this to any different work plan tool that you've enabled the connector for within OnePlan. So while this one was built directly in OnePlan, you can use this any way you like. If I come through here and I go into our templates, you can, basically use a rich templating capability to basically say, here's organization-wide templates that we want people to use for consistency, personal templates that people might want to add in their library, maybe certain online templates that are available to you. You can import things from other OnePlan plans or from CSVs that are exported from other tools. And you can also use AI to ask it to create a plan for you based upon what it knows and the data you give it on the question, and actually apply it right here within OnePlan. So once again, AI assistance, but once again, bringing everything together into a common hub. On top of that, we've got the resource capacity planning we talked about in the slides. You can have a top-down plan here of the resources that are required. I can look at it in terms of hours or maybe full-time equivalents that we want to look at as we go through that and build that plan. We can look at the financial plan in whatever detailed cost categories that you want to. The labor costs can be coming over right from the resource plan itself and the rates that are available to us, and we can compare things like forecast with budget and budget with actuals and be able to manage that right within here as well, let alone the reporting. One of the key benefits that people get out of this is that status reporting each reporting period becomes a very manual exercise. We can fashion a report format that actually pulls in dynamically the data that you need for your reports, gives you areas that you can actually put narrative status in here as you see fit, pull in associated items like, hey, tasks that are in progress or active issues that we're dealing with or risks, etc., and then have it automatically create this for you at any given point in time. And that when you submit it and approve it, it will actually snapshot and capture that data over different periods of time so that you can do the things like the trending. And for non-OnePlan users who could look at it right in here, but you could actually put it out for external folks on things like PDFs or Words or email it in the body of a report so that you can bring that stuff out right from something that's more of a natural output rather than a creation of a project in and of itself each time you do these status reports, okay? If I go back to the portfolio and I drill into a project here, for example, let me look at the IT Azure DevOps plan, okay? And this one is connected to Azure DevOps where it's getting its work plan details from, okay? So if I go into the work plan here and IT Azure DevOps, and I go into the backlog work type here, And let me just expand that so you can see I got features and user stories, and you can see the icons seeing here that these are all connected to Azure DevOps, and they're all coming from Azure DevOps. And I can also see now from an integration perspective that I got an active live connection to Azure DevOps. And if I have rights to go to Azure DevOps, I can just open that right over here in Azure DevOps right from OnePlan if I want to. I was seeing a reflection of the data that's coming from Azure DevOps in OnePlan. Here is the epic that it's tied to and the child pieces that are in here, which is basically the features below which the user stories are there, etc. But one of the cool things in here is not only is it tied directly to this, right? We have access to the OnePlan capabilities here. Like, for example, you can get to the portfolio in OnePlan. You can get to the My Work in OnePlan. You could get to the resource plan in OnePlan. And I can open the things that are specific to this epic from OnePlan and actually work with that stuff right here in Azure DevOps that you typically wouldn't have access to in Azure DevOps. So for example, here's the work plan. And I could also have not only an agile backlog, but I could also have a schedule on a release plan and things like that that I want with that. I can have the resource plan made available to me right here within Azure DevOps. The financials and the detail page, etc., all available to me right from within Azure DevOps. So once again, connection of the data, but also a fused UI for an enhanced user experience. Now, I could very quickly, easily, without going back to the portfolio, switch to other plans. So for example, here, if I go to here and I go to, say, some of my favorites, and I say, well, what if I want to, go from this and show maybe Microsoft's project for the web, which is now Planner Premium. The idea here is that I can go look at, say, the schedule that's here. And the schedule, though simple as it is actually coming from a connection that we have with Microsoft Project for the Web. And same thing like we did with Azure DevOps, we're going to go over there and you're going to see the source data that's automatically synchronizing here with Project for the Web. So once again, you can use Project for the Web if that's where your planning data is. We can connect it to OnePlan and pull it into a portfolio item within OnePlan for that purpose. Now, you don't have to do anything once that connection is set up. It will periodically, typically hourly, update that plan without the user having to do anything. But if you have a demand for a report or something like that, you could, on demand import the data one-off if you need to, but by no means is that required. If I go to switch to another plan, let me switch to, in this case, let me switch to, let me go to Smartsheet. So there's one with a Smartsheet connector that's in here, right? And here is a plan that was built that came fully from our planning that was done in Smartsheet. And the integration I have here is an active connection with Smartsheet. And if I go to open that item, the user that is working in Smartsheet is continuing to do their work in Smartsheet, but OnePlan is periodically pulling that data over so that it rolls up into our overall portfolio of information. So here's my Smartsheet instance, and here is the schedule, the source that's coming from in here, and the structure that you see in here, which is exactly what you see over here as far as the structure within OnePlan. So for example, everything in OnePlan will show the same way, regardless of the source, right? But it's leveraging that data dynamically. And I guess I'll do just a couple more just to show that those connectors are here. One is, let's look at Monday.com. Same type of concept where I've got a schedule. I've got it broken out. There's two phases that are built out right now, scope and design. And if I look at the integration and the connection that's there to Monday.com, it's going to take me to Monday. And the plan that's there is the source of what is being pulled into OnePlan for part of a holistic portfolio that's in there, regardless of where the source of the execution data. So here is the Monday.com data that it's coming from. Okay, and I guess the only other piece I guess I would show now, because Jira works pretty much the same way as Azure DevOps does, but if I go to switch the plan here and I look at Microsoft Project on the desktop, which many people are still using. So the new stuff that Microsoft's working with is really pretty much working only with Project for the Web, which is now called Planner Premium. But there's a lot of folks that have complex projects that require the tool sets of Project Professional on the desktop. And many people have a lot of things invested in that particular plan. So if I go to Project Professional plan here and I go to the work plan, you'll see I've got a detailed plan here. And you can see what I've got integrated here. And because this is a desktop tool and not a web tool, right? If I go to open this item, it's actually connected to Microsoft Project on the desktop. And a little bit different here. In this case, I'm working with a standalone Microsoft Project plan. It could be Microsoft Project Online. But the key here is that this source plan is where that data in OnePlan is coming from. And what OnePlan does, it provides for this, it provides a connector tool within Microsoft Project that allows us to publish this plan out to Microsoft, receive updates back from the updates that come in there, and map the resources, et cetera, over there. So basically what we're looking at is a plan that's, once again, based from a desktop tool here that comes over there from all these different tool sets. Now, we talked about the individual resource plans within the projects, and I showed you that for individual projects, but the power is really how it all aggregates up. And if I aggregate this up to an overall resource plan, and I look at resource plans, and I can look at them by individual resources, or in this case, I got them aggregated by role. If I look in here and look at developer resources and the individuals that are in there, as well as what may be assigned generically to an individual generic developer, I can see where, and let me just take a look and switch this over to an FTE view. I can see at some point I need more than 9 or 10 or 12, where I only have a capacity of 7. So once again, if I have this visibility ongoing, I'm unlikely to over allocate it to this degree ongoing. But as I need to reallocate some of these things, I may want to look for candidates to get a named individual onto this concept development. And I can have the tool find me best matches that tell me who might be unavailable or available, where it says here, right here, it looks like a Steve McGarrett might be a candidate because he has full availability at the time frame that I'm looking to get a resource on there, and I can replace that resource right here in that view. I can also look at, and this is more of a top-down plan that we talked about in the slides. On the bottom-up plan, we might be looking at what's scheduled and then coming in from the tasks within our detailed tactical plans. And as I go through that and I look at the scheduled, and I go down by role and I look into, say, Jared Dunn, I can see he's on these projects, right? And I can see the one he's most allocated on, and I can see because he's on all these tasks within that detailed plan, right? I could also look at it from a timesheet basis. If you're collecting actuals, for example, you can look at what the actuals are that are coming in from all these different resources. As I come through here and I look at a timesheet, say, for example, and I drill into, say, the engineering, and I drill into Daniel Williams, I could actually do a compare. And let me compare, say, for example, what was scheduled to what's been charged time-wise on these tasks, right? And as I go look at that, I can see, for example, here in June, that I'm red because I was supposed to be about quarter time on this in June, and I ended up being about 50% of the time in the hours that were actually charged. So once again, good resource capacity planning and visibility on that. Overall, the strategic alignment pieces are really all about first developing a strategy, and I'll go to the strategic plan first and talk about it in a very high level right now. And that high level would be to set up your objectives and your key results. In this case, I got to improve IT infrastructure and some key results that are tangible measures. And I can drill in and I can have forms just like we had on the projects where we look at what the objective description are, what the measures, what the progress is, when the time frames are we want, and what key results it's aligned with, right? And if I come into this type of thing and I go back to this and I go say, let me just look at what we call the visualizer. And the visualizer basically will say what things are dependent on us, and we have a successor that's dependent on us, but the real key is the associations here on the runway. And the idea here is that we have an objective that has 3 key results, that has projects and epics that are aligned with those. And there's other elements like products and applications and business capabilities that are also associated that we have to factor in, as well as color coding by the status. And for example, if I want to look at why this is red, I could drill in and do that kind of quick edit dynamically from here and keep status updates based upon the things that I'm relying on or I'm associated with to make sure that things I'm depending on aren't falling out of bed. So once again, these are all things that align with as part of this overall adaptive and strategic alignment approach. Now, I won't have much time here today to go into details around this, but the what-if analysis is key. And I can build models with prospective projects and ideas that we have that we can assess. For example, there's 43 things here I would like to do. And I might have constraints on here because I don't have the dollars or the resources to do this, right? So I can see here that the resources got a lot of red on it, probably not doable. The financials are something that I have some red in the financial aspects of it as well. And if I go look at different scenarios that I create where I select and deselect projects or move them out in time, I can basically assess what I can do within, say, a $10 million budget and look at the types of things that we have in here and basically say, out of that 43, for $10 million, I can only find 17 prioritized projects that I could actually do for that $10 million, right? But I do have a scenario that fits within that $10 million threshold. And I can do another scenarios. I have a $15 million scenario, et cetera. And the idea here is that I can compare different scenarios and have metrics in here like the budget and the benefits that we have. And say, for example, the difference between the 10 and the 5 is a spend of 5 million. But if I can find the 5 million, I'm anticipating I could generate another $20 million in benefit. It might be worth my time to explore being able to do that. So the key here is that you have all types of things that you can look at, including charts and other things about our assessment, about, you know, what we picked versus what we didn't pick, and should we reconsider those types of things. Now, ultimately, you know, reporting and dashboards are key. I've shown you a lot of live views in here today, but we talked about just, you know, data analysis and decision support. You know, in this portfolio level, for example, we have reports that leverage Microsoft Power BI, but a full data feed that supports all the data that's in OnePlan. So for example, at the multi-portfolio level, I see all the different portfolios that I have here. I could actually just focus on a particular portfolio here if I wanted to, right? I could drill into a particular portfolio, like go to the portfolio details, and I could come in here and say, all right, in this portfolio, data analytics transformation, here's the overall status. Here is the, and if I want to drill in further, to be quite honest, I could drill into that particular program, because this is program level data we're looking at now in that portfolio. And now I've got, so this is giving me drill down data to whatever level of data makes sense for me to go. For example, we can have a health summary that gives us a mirror of those KPIs I showed in the active views. You know, we could look at overall financial health across all of our projects. We can look at things like overall risk summaries that pull things up, you know, risks across all projects and be able to slice into those. We can even look at things like insights, right? And basically say, you know, give me an idea where, what projects we have that are off track on overall health. And it would focus me, you know, on those particular projects as I drill through all this type of information, right? And then all kinds of trending, like we talked about. We saw the trends in the live views, but what if we wanted to see trends on the various health states or on the details, right, of the projects, and even on, you know, the work trends, on how we're doing on late tasks and other types of things. Once again, users who aren't hands-on within OnePlan can actually go directly into Power BI and view these reports based upon the good work that you're doing within OnePlan itself.